Here we go. Margaret Sanger, the pioneer of feminism, was in fact a horrible, awful eugenicist. Don't believe me? You'll be shocked to hear what she had to say.
Eugenics, the science of improving a human population by controlled breeding to increase the occurrence of desirable heritable characteristics. Developed largely by Francis Galton as a method of improving the human race, it fell into disfavor only after the perversion of its doctrines by the Nazis.
So, a lot of people scratch their heads and, they're curious. Well, exactly how does eugenics and feminism go hand in hand? Well, Margaret Sanger is one of the proponents and one of the leaders of feminism, the feminist movement, a long time ago. And she is known as the founder of Planned Parenthood, which deals with abortions and basically termination of unwanted pregnancies, right? Many of Miss Sanger's writings are publicly available through the Margaret Sanger Project, and it has a very searchable online archive of her writings and speeches where her very words stir a great deal of controversy. And she's been publicly accused as being a genocidal racist who attempted to use sterilization and birth control to exterminate African Americans in the United States. Now, there's a lot of people that support her and still hold her up on a high pedestal for women and the equal the voting bloc and everything and all of the things she's done for women and feminist movement in general. Um, the many supporters tirelessly attempt to defend her ideologies through deflections and denials, but her own words should be proof enough of her very bigotry and her very nature. Now, again, you're looking at the early 1900s. Obviously, there were a lot of still, Jim Crow laws, and you had a lot of racial division in the South, and there was all this tension of things going on. And while at the same time, in the early 1900s, women still couldn't vote. They didn't have the right to vote. Um, but one of the proponents and the things that Margaret Sanger wanted to go about was trying to cull the African American population. I'll read a quote now of from one of her speeches, right? So on December 29th, 1912, as part of a series of articles published in the New York Call, a daily newspaper. So this is in 1912. Sanger wrote an article called Sexual Impulses, Part 2. In it, she states, and I quote, this is Margaret Sanger from 1912. In all fish and reptiles where there is no great brain development, there is also no conscious sexual control. The lower down in the scale of human development we go, the less sexual control we find, right? So, it is said that the Aboriginal Australian, the lowest known species of the human family, just a step higher than the chimpanzee in brain development, has so little sexual control that police authority alone prevents him from obtaining sexual satisfaction on the streets. According to one writer, the rapist has just enough brain development to rise above the animal, but like the animal when in heat knows no law except nature, which impels him to procreate whenever the result. In March of 1925, at a dinner while giving a speech, Sanger said, "The United States government has become a pioneer by its immigration laws. It is really putting into effect today in it immigration laws, exactly what most birth controllers want. The only thing is, while it applies its laws in keeping out of this country the mentally defective and the physically weak and defective, the paupers, and the other kind of so-called undesirables, we only wish it would extend its laws a little bit more and stop the multiplication of the same undesirable type within." In her March 1938 speech, Human Conservation and Birth Control, Sanger openly supported Hitler's Nazi racially purity forced sterilization laws for women, and she openly advocated that the United States enact laws that pattern those after Nazi Germany. This woman it's not good. All right, here we go. In an unpublished draft, Sanger writes, "One authority claims that out of our population of 100 million, only 15 million can be regarded as intelligent, that 85 million have less than average mental capacity, and compared to the youth of 15 years, under this comes the morons, feeble-minded, high-grade imbeciles, then idiots, etc. From this grade comes paupers, prostitutes, criminals, tramps, inebriates, and all trending to be born somewhat defective." In the same draft, Sanger goes on to state, "This group are lacking in vitality, in moral standards, in inattentive and wholly unfit for the organized activity. Bad conditions kill off the unfit, leaving room and space for the fit to survive, and allowing the unfit to reproduce their kind. We are doing our best to lower the level of life." On December 10th, 1939, Margaret Sanger wrote a letter to Dr. C.J. Gamble. Her letter was requesting that Dr. Gamble keep in touch with her about their N-word project. I'm not going to say what the word is because I don't want to cause any of the platforms to basically tear down what I'm saying here. So I'll just, for African Americans, right? But again, this was written in the 1930s. Let me continue. In her letter, she states, "There is only one thing that I would like to be in touch with, and that is the N-word project. Miss Ross sent me a copy of your letter of December 5th, and I made a note that you doubt it worthwhile to employ a full-time African American physician." She said the N-word, but continuing. "It seems to me, from my experience where I have been in North Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, and Texas, that while the colored N-words have great respect for white doctors, they can get closer to their own members and more or less lay their cards on the table, which means their ignorance, superstitions, and doubts. They do not do this with the white people, and if we can train the N-word doctor at the clinic, he can go amongst them with enthusiasm and with knowledge, which I believe will have far-reaching results among the colored people. His work, in my opinion, should be entirely with the N-word profession and nurses, hospitals, social workers, as well as the county's white doctors. His success will depend upon his personality and his training by us." Now you may ask, what exactly is the African American Project's goal here, the N-word goal here? In the letter, she is very candid about that, and she says, "We do not want word to go out that we want to exterminate the N-word population." So, you hear that, feminists? Turns out the founder of Planned Parenthood, of, trying to get women all these things and gender equality and everything else, she had some pretty nasty tendencies to drop the N word quite a bit. I mean, again, it's right in the 1930s, but it's Still, this isn't somebody that should be really looked up to and really idolized. She's a eugenicist and believing in, as I said before, culling the population within the United States of people that she herself deemed was undesirable and that she wanted to do it. Let me continue here, okay? Um, while Sanger was a vocal advocate for Planned Parenthood and feminism, basically, she used her platform to further her secret eugenics agenda of genocidal extermination of everyone not of her race and the elite status, the elite social status. Now, feminism means equality, right? That's what feminists all demand, that there's supposed to be equality on every level, and feminism has always been about equality and the right for women to vote. Well, here's a little fact, okay? In 1910, blacks, right? African Americans made up about 15% of the American population. Um, it's on another way, in just over 100 years since Planned Parenthood started going through with the abortions, killing unborn babies, right, of the African American community, the 2% nationwide population reduction of today represents close to 12% in a decrease of the number of African Americans in the United States. It's insane. So now it's not only crazy to think of just a genocide, it's a tragedy that Planned Parenthood targets the African American communities for birth control and abortion. And they brainwash so many African American feminists to become lambs led to basically the slaughter. And like so many prominent feminists, they don't want people to listen to, the rhetoric of what they've said or what they believe. Um, it's a destructive nature. And, obviously, again, in the past with how things were, so many things about feminism, it had an underlining theme of trying to push a narrative and an agenda. And what Margaret Sanger was trying to do was she clearly had a bias towards a vast majority of people within the country. And it's really frightening to think that knowing this information for what it is, that you have people like Laura Dunham and all these other feminists, right? These ideologues and people that push her agenda and they try to cover up what she said and what she did. The truth is that feminism it never was about equality. It's about destruction of society, of members of people within society, of lies, of deceit, of subverting culture to try and basically have a superior class within culture ruling over people, and run by women, and it's to know that so many people are still on board with what she did. It's like as if you're still willing to defend Adolf Hitler for basically the Holocaust. The Holocaust in the world, why what feminism has done is rampant, and it's so disgusting that people can actually, knowing this from what Margaret Sanger said and her own words and how she believed, it's as if you're trying to defend a very horrible person. And I personally see it as really disgusting. Feminists, you can put that in your craw and smoke it. Because Margaret Sanger was one nasty woman. All right, guys. Comment down below, like, subscribe, spread the word. MGTOW is freedom. MGTOW is life in itself. And I'll see you all on the next episode.